Hey Hogan neighbors, what's going on? For some reason, StreamYard was glitching tonight, so that didn't go very smooth. But I'm back. I know pretty much the show is sporadic at this point, but anytime I have a chance to showcase a creator, especially an indie creator, and their Kickstarter campaign, we love to do it. I mean, this is what the community is about. We want to get everybody's eyes on everything because you know what? Everybody deserves a shot, and there's some great stuff out there. And I actually got to read the first issue of the book we're talking about today, and it's really good. It's well written. It's a really interesting story. The writer creator is a cool dude, and his campaign is successful so far. But we want to help push that along and get it over the top. Ignore the cat in the background. He's the one that once notoriously shut my mic and um, microphone and my camera off when I was interviewing Keith Williams. Little jerk. Anyway, before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that it's weird. The shows pop up here and there, but again, it's kind of just the show is not back, but I like to help promote as best as possible. So we're gonna have fun. We're gonna sit back. We're gonna talk about the creator and writer we have tonight, as well as the campaign we're gonna go over and everything. I hope you all stick around. Be a part of the chat. Talk to us. Who's the first one in? Come say hi. Let's give the creator love. It's not about giving me love. It's about giving love and exposure to the people that are on the show. Okay. So without further ado, today we're going to talk about creator Sean P. Terry's issues 1 and 2 of The Bar. Hey.
Hey, Phil.
How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, Lori. Lori says hello. So it's good to have you on. Thank you. I got to read the first issue. Obviously, your Kickstarter is the first 2 issues. So the second one is the new one. It's the new one that's coming out, and you're smart to have a catch-up tier. I really enjoyed the issue, and we're going to get into it in the story a little bit without spoilers. But before we do, to get to know you a little bit, you look like a young guy, but you're obviously writing some good, mature material. What got you into comic books and wanting to start creating your own comic book?
Yeah, I just knew I wanted to write really from the youngest age, and I remember being a teenager reading graphic novels, and a lot of what I read was the Vertigo stuff, Preacher, Sandman. Those were kind of at the end of their runs, and then I would move on to Lucifer and a lot of those other books, all that same kind of a vein. So I think a lot of those books had a lot of the more realistic world and contents, and I think that's really what made an impression on me then. If I wanted to kind of look at some heroes to identify, whether it's Gay Man or more, those are really a lot of my early and direct influences. Like those were the first things I read when I started to read things beyond X-Men or Spider-Man, right? So I think after that, it was set. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
I can tell, it makes total sense after reading the issue that those would be your influences. It's grounded in reality with a supernatural flair. Um, but again, it's really grounded in reality with the harsher side of things. But it's good. It's really good. Um, so you talked about your writing inspirations. Did you like start to research how to write, or you just naturally just I put it on paper and it started to go?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, honestly. First you wonder what it looks like. Whether you're writing a short story in prose or whether you're writing a novel, whether you're writing a screenplay, right? Every medium has its own kinds of rules and strengths, and so I researched it in the sense of I'm looking at scripts, I'm reading interviews that other creators like our heroes have said, and so I think that when you want to dedicate yourself to something, you want to find out all about that subject matter. So I definitely dove in.
How was it finding your creative team? Because I know as a writer myself, you really want to have the artist that's style reflects the tone of what you're trying to do. And that's not always easy because not only do you have to find the right style of artist, but the right personality.
Yeah. So it's tough. There's not as many. I'm not going to say there's not a ton of U.S. based artists, but it seems like when I was kind of digging through the artists and who might be a potential fit, a lot of it was just through the comic book groups on Facebook, and asking, can I see samples of your sequentials, all that kind of a thing. And so many of them were from Mexico and Brazil, and you don't get a lot of the U.S., or if you do, sometimes, to have it be economical, you have to take, I guess, the best combination of who's going to bring the vision to life, who can you afford, who can you do an ongoing series with. For me, I personally want to always see, when I'm looking at a portfolio, have they done something in the past that looks like what I want them to do? So I think that's one of my biggest criteria too.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a good point. I think with the American artists, obviously our economy, they can't afford to take a $20, $30, or $40 page rate. And with the exchange rate, if you go to Brazil or Philippines, you could pay them $50 a page and they're living well, they're getting paid well. And I do think they're hungry to come into the American market, so you probably get more attention from that, which I do agree. Um, so, how did you find Ricardo? I mean, through one of the posts you put up, and were you instantly like, "Wow, this is the guy," or how did that work?
Yeah, that's basically how it went. For me, if I'm doing a post to find talent, sometimes I'm either giving an example of other artists who are that style, who is similar to this, or I'm posting the art that looks like the art that I'm seeking. So either of those things. But honestly, it was just a deal to where he responded to the post, and I looked through his portfolio, and I said, "This guy can do it."
Very cool. Yeah, I got to say, we're going to show it soon, but his art is beautiful, and the colors are great too. And you'd be surprised; it's not easy to find a colorist that fits because, I mean, there's a lot of talented colorists, but again, there's budget, there's personality, and there's colors that meet the tone of the book. Like you're not going to go with bright colors with your book at this point. You know, you want something that's a little more morose and darker, and but yet at the same time, you need the pages to pop.
Right.
So how did that come about? Meeting your colorist.
Well, similar process, really. Anytime I've needed anybody, the Facebook groups have been so great because, like you say, the community, right? So, the more I think that you're involved, the more friends that you're adding that are artists, that are writers, that are other creators. That's a boon. And you could just post on your page. Do you want talent? Whoever you're seeking, whatever position, and have responses there. But a lot of the connecting comic book artists and writers and those kinds of groups are where I've done the best. I think almost everybody I've hired has just been based upon them responding to posts in that group and then looking for the fit. Like you say, there's been a lot of different artistic styles as the years have gone on. Hey Jay,
Right.
and
Jay Sloan, what's going on, buddy? Another great artist.
yeah, and so the modern style it's a lot more of a stylized art. I don't want to call it like a broad color palette, but a lot of the image books today have that kind of I guess muted color palette. So whereas DC colorists they tend to be more punchy, like they hit that dark,
Right.
gritty Batman esque kind of a thing. So I knew I always wanted that kind of rough and tumble look. Like you got to imagine somebody walking through an alley and bring that atmosphere and the creativity of that to life, right? So Robert, I think in his other work has captured that very well. He does a lot of stuff for Source Point.
I
So
agree.
yeah,
By the way, Jay, feel free to drop links to anything you want. Anytime I have a live show, everyone is welcome to drop links. This is community. We support each other. Jay's got some great projects and him working with Ray Merrick and other people, and he's a talented artist. So thanks for coming out, Jay. So you got your team assembled. You only got one script written, or do you have this plotted out for how many, or have you scripted? How far in advance were you? Because me, I've got 21 issues scripted. I'm a nut, but
I have at least 21 outlined. I'd have to take account of how many are full script at this point, but it's going to be around for a while.
So this is an ongoing series.
Yeah.
Now, is this your second Kickstarter campaign, or have you done others for other books?
Nope. I have a series called 2100 AD. That's up to issue 5 now. I've done that actually, releasing 1 and 2 at the same time together as like a 44 or 48 pager, and I did the same thing with issues 3 and 4. So next thing that'll probably be end of summer, maybe July or August, as a trade, collecting the first 5. So um, I'm always of a mind that you got to be kind of like done with the book, or at least 90% done with the book before you come to Kickstarter. For the most part, anytime
That's
I've
great.
run yeah, anytime I've run a campaign, if it's ended in November, people are holding it in December. So
It has to be absolutely. We're going to touch that in a minute. I just want to regards to Sean's comment. Hey, Sean, how are you? Thanks for coming out. Congrats on getting started as a writer. I'll let you take this one and then I'll answer after. So, should he look for others that are work for hire?
So most everybody you find is going to be work for hire. You know, as an artist, people need to get paid. This is how they're paying their bills that month, their rent, their mortgage, they're feeding their children based upon producing this art. So the most important thing for any talent that I've come across is to have a page rate. Profit sharing, back end, you know, you have to meet a certain threshold of success in sales for those things to materialize.
Right.
And it's great if you can cut somebody in on that. And if you find somebody that's a kindred spirit, or maybe they're willing to negotiate a little bit on their rate to give them some back end sharing, or a part of the IP, if that's to come into play one day, that might please them. But for the most part, they're all probably going to be work for hire, and they're going to want the rate that they need to feed their family.
I'd also add work for hire would be the best situation for you, in my opinion, for two reasons. You're a creator. If you don't do work for hire, you're now collaborating and you're now bringing that person in on your IP to some degree, right? I mean, um, work for hire is set in stone. It's clear. You're here to draw the book, but it's my characters, my creations, etc. The other thing is, look, you know the old adage, you get what you pay for. I know we're all on budgets, but if you can't afford a professional or quality artist, you might want to wait because you get what you pay for. And you get one shot at this. You put the book out, it's out there. And if you look back and go, man, I wish I had a better product, too late. So my recommendation is take your time to find the right work for hire artist and pay them a fair page rate, and they will give you, if they're the right person, they'll give you the right job, and make that book look professional. Because this is a visual medium. No matter, we could be the best writers in the world and nobody knows while it's sitting on a rack. The only thing though is that art on that cover, maybe that logo attracted them. You know, it's the artist who brings them in. It's the writer who keeps them. That's how I always feel. So that's just my 2 cents. But thanks for the great question. All right. So, first of all, we have it scrolling below www.intelligencomics.com. No T on that. Just keep that in mind, guys. It's not spelled wrong. If they go there, can they pick up the 5 issues of the other series you have?
Yeah. All the books we've made to date are available on the website for purchase. They're typically available in both digital and print formats. So to me, I never, snub my nose at somebody who's a digital fan. I get it. For me, I like to read a lot of things digitally. Sometimes if I'm on an airplane or something, it's a lot more convenient. So I always want to, I guess, acknowledge both sides of that. I know certain creators, they're really stuck on owning things physically in print. For me, I think that any way you want to read it, any way you want to own it, I'm more than happy to have you.
Yeah, you just want to get it out there. And the truth is, there's no overhead on a print on a digital. I
True.
mean, there's no overhead. So, and you can reach international backers without, because who's going to pay $30 at this point for a $10 book? It's not economical for them as the consumer.
You
So
get sometimes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just said you do get some. I know you do the Kickstarters and everything. You will get some, but you're right. For a lot of people, it's just far more convenient if they're overseas or.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm a physical copy guy. I don't want to read digital. I want to read physical. But Sean said, I see the need for it. And the truth is, if you're in the business, your job is to just get it out there to as many eyes as possible to increase your fan base. Don't limit yourself. That's just foolish. You're cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that, I've seen certain campaigns to where they won't offer a digital version, and
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's not something to where I want to weigh my finger too heavily on the scales either way. I'll just say I don't think that it's ever a great thing to limit your reach and limit how people want to purchase things. So I'm very friendly when it comes to that.
Now, here's a controversial question that we don't have to get too deep into, but I always had a saying: if you know my political beliefs while reading my book, I've failed you as a writer, because you're making your book a pulpit at this point. What are your thoughts on uh, the preachy side of some writers, where that they're sending you their opinion through the book? I mean, we all write from what we know, but there's writing a story, and then there's using the book as a pulpit. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess it depends on where the line is. I mean, if if the entire book is just like a soapbox guide, I guess I wouldn't be a fan of that. But I think back to some books I've enjoyed. Like I know Brian K. Vaughan when he did I think Pride of Baghdad, like that was a
That was a
condemnation.
hard book.
But it was also a condemnation on Iraq, right? Like,
Right.
should he write that? Should he not write that? I guess if it's in your heart to write it, do it. But I think we're in comics to tell the stories that are important to us. It's no secret that if you're, I guess, too right or left leaning, that you're probably losing some fans. So I guess you'd have to weigh that and figure out whether it was worth it to you.
That's a good example of Pride Baghdad, which is a great book. The thing about it though is you never got the impression he was pushing any moral fiber on you what you should believe. He was putting it in the context and the scenario of what was actually happening to families and things going on there. So um, it made you think, and it made you sympathize and empathize, but it didn't push it in you need to feel or believe this or else, and I think that's the difference between some of the things that are going on today and what was going on then.
You know
But
that's actually a good point. One might argue that you're doing a better service as a writer if maybe two people can read it and have different impressions of it, and it's left a little ambiguous. So I'd second that.
I agree. And by the way, I'm looking down because I'm sharing this in a bunch of groups. I'm not being rude. Um, get this out there to a lot of people. I'm in like 50 of these groups. Um, so yeah, I mean, I again, I think there's a big demand by a great large demographic that just want quality stories to get away from everything that's driving them nuts right now. Uh, Not to say that political satire doesn't have a spot, or not to say that you can't write about real things. Of course you can. But like your book, for example, to segue, it writes about real issues that are not easy topics to talk about, but you put it in just this is the story. Take it for how you want to walk away from it, which I think is a sign of a mature and a quality writer. So kudos to you. So going into the bar, why don't you give us a little bit of a synopsis of what we expect when we back this campaign, or I will toilet paper everybody's house.
I think it's a story everyone can enjoy because I think that we're very desensitized to violence in the media. Somebody dies, that means nothing to us, right? Somebody gets shot, we don't really understand it. But notably, if we see, maybe a video of somebody dying or something, that's when there's the outrage. That's when it becomes real to us. So I think with the bar, there's a lot of ugly issues that the bar covers. There's a lot of topics that we don't discuss very much, topics that maybe we don't actually know what this looks like. The first issue, you can consider it to be like a story of domestic violence, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to ask and to have that answered, like, what does this actually look like? Because sometimes people could say, why don't the women just leave, right? Or I can't extrapolate upon everything that somebody can come up with when it comes to that. But what I can say is, for me, the bar is about telling all kinds of stories from all walks of life, right? So if you want to go into kind of like, what is the bar? What is the premise? What is the setup? The bar is kind of a backdrop to be able to tell any kind of short story. So every issue is self-contained. What that means is the character that enters the bar did not exist before issue one, and they cease to exist after issue one. Issue two is a whole new character. What stays the same is the bar and the bartender. So he's there. He's there to listen. He's having people that come in and tell him stories from all walks of life, right? So in the first one, we encounter an abused woman. Like, what is her background? How did this happen? How many years has she been in that relationship? What is happening with that? So we get to, I think, have a great look at all of those things. Hey, Mike, and
Yeah, I was gonna let him know after I was gonna shout him out.
and so for me, like, a lot of the influences of even shows I watch, whether it was Law and Order or Tales from the Crypt, different series like that, Twilight Zone as well, right? So I think with Tales from the Crypt, there's always like the setting, right? The Crypt Keeper comes and he's, tonight's tale is a harrowing saga, and
Right.
so that's what we kind of get to do with the bar. The bar is the constant. That's the place where the stories are told. And tonight's tale, the protagonist is whoever walks in that night, and it could be a serial killer. It could be anybody from any walk of life. And so I like that because once you have the world built, then you don't have to do that every issue. You can just focus on the stories, and so it's a little bit like Tales from the Crypt in the sense of there's always typically some retribution happening. Like there's usually a karmatic justice. Like the stories end in almost a poetic justice or karmatic justice, and then it's a little bit like Law and Order too. In some of the subject matter that we're seeing, it's harsh. It hits us with a ton of bricks, and it's also that way in the sense that the bartender himself, we never know exactly what he's thinking. We don't know all that much about him. We see a compassionate side of him in issue one. We might see a different side of him in issue two. So in the same way that in a lot of these TV series, the detectives, you learn a little bit about them through each episode as you go, based upon their reactions to a situation, or you know, I don't know if you ever watched Law and Order, but back in the day, Lenny would say, "Oh, that's something my kid would do," or "That's what my wife." So you learned about him. Like the episode was never about him, but you learn about these people as you're watching that show or that series. Same thing with the bar. You're always learning about the bartender just based upon observing him in each issue.
Well, reading the first issue myself, he had his compassionate side, but there was that judgment side that was there too.
It's
You
always.
know, what's that?
I just said it's always there. Never leaves.
Yeah, I mean, but it was fascinating because you didn't know, like he was listening to this person and their story, and he shifted his responses based on finding out the facts, but you felt like, where is he going with this? What is going to be the outcome, and does he have anything to do with an outcome at this point? He's a very mysterious character, and I found him intriguing. So kudos to you on that. Yeah, Michael had said hello, a long time, buddy. Good to see you. I hope the family's well. Yeah, man. They look, in the day of social media and the digital age of news, we're seeing the most graphic stuff on a regular basis, and like Sean said, we get desensitized. But this book, for me, just based on my upbringing, it was I connected. So I thought the first book was really good, and I look forward to backing and getting the second book. It's on Kickstarter right now. So I'm gonna put it up here, and then we'll make it the full screen in a minute. So this is the bar. We're gonna do the trailer in a second, but $1,500 goal. You're at 1718 with 67 backers and 15 days to go. So congratulations to you, halfway through. Before we get into the campaign itself, a lot of people don't talk about the emotional roller coaster that is Kickstarter, and I don't think unless you've done a Kickstarter, people understand. One day you're feeling on top of the world, the next day you're feeling like this is not going anywhere, and when there's that lull in the middle, I mean, you're like your gut is dropping, and your heart is dropping, and then it picks up and you feel good again, and it's such a ride emotionally. And between that and the hardest part is the marketing to get it out there. It's exhausting. When a campaign is over, you're exhausted and wiped out, and then you got to fulfill. So, how do you deal with that roller coaster and those struggles that come with the campaign?
So I think for me, the first Kickstarter I did, you see everybody else just, having insane numbers and thinking, well, I'll do what that person did, or what you don't realize is all the behind the scenes stuff, right? People have their email list, they have groups that they're sharing to, or they have other creators that they're cross promoting with. So it takes a lot to make a campaign successful. Right, Jay? Right? That's where I'm at right now. Imagine poor anxiety me right now in the middle of the campaign. But I think after you do a couple, you say to yourself, okay, probably I need to temper my expectations, right? I need to know where I'm gonna land. I need to be okay with that outcome. So I think as long as we're able to, for most of us anyway, for most of us, it's all about our passion, right? So as long as we're able to get to a place to where I'll be able to comfortably make more of these, right? And whether that's covering your production costs or getting near that, or you're going to make some up by going to cons and selling some more books that way, whatever the case is. So I think that, like you mentioned, Phil, it's also something you got to keep in mind when you're hiring people, right? Because the difference between somebody that's 150 for pencils and inks versus 100 versus 80, those are all the end numbers. And so I think for me, uh, I at this point have a great idea of where a campaign is going to go and what's it going to raise. I think that this issue is going to be more than issue one. I'd imagine issue three you're going to continue to grow. Whether you're adding 20 backers a campaign, whether you're adding 50 extra backers, as long as you're having a growth trajectory, as long as you're getting out there, as long as you've kind of hardened yourself a little bit mentally for where you may or may not go, I think you're okay. Uh, to say that a lot of creators have a campaign and then they jump off Facebook for a month, I get it. It's exhausting, and around that time usually when you're doing fulfillment or putting some final touches on, so it makes a lot of sense.
See, you had mentioned it before, and I think this is the absolute key to Kickstarter success, at least going forward from book one. You have to fulfill quickly and efficiently, period. You can't wait 6 to 8 to 10 months because the book wasn't done. I'm with you, Sean. You better be 90% done with that book at the very minimum. My book is done before the Kickstarter is over for sure. And if I have the money to roll around, I might do the print run ahead of time, to do a guesstimate or whatever, so I can ship right away as well. Because you got to wait 2 weeks to get your Kickstarter money after, you know. But to remind everybody, please don't look at a campaign and say, "Oh, he's $218 over his goal. He's good." No, he's not. You never know if somebody backs out at the last minute. But on top of that, Kickstarter takes their fees. That 1718 includes the shipping costs that he's going to have, and there's packaging costs, and it depends if he's hiring somebody to help for fulfillment. So you'd be surprised how quickly after the print runs, especially with paper right now, they're expensive. That 1700 goes very fast, and he still has to find a way to fund the next book. So please keep that in mind, because when you support the book, you're not just supporting Sean, you're supporting the artists he hires for covers and interiors, the colorist, the letterer, and editor. You're employing a lot of people. You're supporting a lot of dreams. So please keep that in mind for a simple $10 or $15 pledge, or even if you just want to donate $5 if it's not your thing. What's $5? You spend $8 on a crappy cup of coffee at Starbucks so they spell your name wrong, right? Well, maybe you just pass it up this week and throw that $8 at his campaign. Every dollar counts.
Yeah, thanks for that, Phil. And it's true. Every dollar does count because that is how you make more. I think for a lot of us, when we talk about being finished with a product before we go to Kickstarter, we're self-funding, right? So
Yep.
this is sometimes it's just paying for printing, sometimes it's recouping some of those costs. It's no secret that every dollar a creator raises past their goal is maybe what's allowing them to do that second or that third issue that much faster, right? And then good thing with me, all the intelligent comics that have been released so far, the campaign ends about 2 weeks later. We're holding usually the print copies and they're shipping right after that. So it's not
Nice.
uncommon to be holding the book 3 weeks after the campaign ending. So it really is more of a pre-order than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jay. And Jay, I'll tell you firsthand. Think about this. For Jay Sloan to do a detailed sequential page, I mean, doing one page a day, and that's an 8 to 10 to 12 hour day, depending on if he's doing inks or how fast. Your entire day is for that page. So, as an American artist, to get $50 a day, can any of you afford to live off of that? So, keep that in mind when you're trying to hire an artist. But also, keep that in mind that he wants to continue to get work. Jay needs to put food on his table and take care of himself. And he's got 20 kids to feed. Now, in all seriousness, though. Um, we're going to show the trailer in a second, but I also just want to make a point. If you buy an indie book, say you pick up the bar like you're going to today, right? You're going to pledge and pick up the bar issues 1 and 2 because it doesn't cost that much and it's a good read. Don't just say good book and put it on the shelf and say, I can't wait for the next one. Tell everyone. As a matter of fact, I even challenge you, go tell your local stores, write to them, write to publishers like Source Point Press or Scout or whatever, and say, you got to pick up this book. You need to pick up this book. Tell them if you like the book, you have to support it. Is it your job? No, but if you want to see the book continue and be a part of that world and enjoy it, why not? It takes a few minutes. Spread the word. Tell people that you like Sean's book. Even if it's telling five of your friends, go pledge on his Kickstarter. Go do that. All right, I'm on my soapbox. I apologize. So we're gonna play the trailer. The sound should be on. If it isn't, let me know, Sean.
Load up on guns and bring your friends. It's fun to lose and to pretend. She's overboard and self-assured. Oh no, I know a dirty word. Hello, 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 hello. With the lights out, it's less dangerous. Here we are now, entertainers. I feel stupid and contagious. Here we are now, entertainers.
Very cool. Kickstarters. It's a known statistical fact that trailers boost success big time. But when you see a trailer that's done professional and you can see the quality of the trailer, that just tells you what you're going to get by the creator for the book. And that was a quality professional trailer, man. Good job.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I have no idea what I'm doing when I make a trailer, but I appreciate that compliment.
So, yeah, fantastic. The art looks great. You get emotional just listening to that music and looking at that trailer. So imagine what it's going to be like reading the book. So let's go into it. This is a mature book, just so everybody knows. So it's your parents' discretion if you think it's appropriate for your kids, but just be aware it's mature, 18 plus, sexually explicit content. So as we go through this, you're welcome. Talk about your process as far as like when you send the script over to Ricardo, who's your artist. Are you when you write your scripts, are they the Marvel way or are they more detailed? Are you very tight on what you want and do you throw what angles you want, etc., or what?
Well, let me just catch up on the comments real fast. Lori, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Jay, I back Jay and Ray. They're putting out good stuff too. Jay's a great artist. And then Jay had asked a question about
I
copyright.
was gonna ask that.
Yeah. Well, so actually, I put a sometimes when you upload something to YouTube, they check it for copyright violations. In this case, that artist does allow the use of that music. What they'll do is they'll just put an ad for your video and they'll monetize it that way. So you're using their thing, they're running an ad where you uploaded it. That's some artists can tell you no, but this artist just monetizes it. So it is allowed, or at least that's what YouTube has conferred to me. So
Cool. Yeah.
uh,
Well, you haven't been knocked down yet, so.
right. Uh, in regards to the process, so everything I do is full script, right? Not at all the Marvel way. With a lot of the characters, I see them moving in my head, so it's easy enough to find photo reference or write a really detailed description on a panel, just kind of give the artist, I think, a really clear picture of what to do there. Now that said, it's always going to be a collaboration, though. There's artists to where, if I said something was 9 panels, they change it to 8. They feel it, flows better that way. I'm always open to that kind of a thing. I think whatever's best for the story. I think when you get to true collaboration, it really comes about like, I'm seeing it visually, but they're seeing it visual too. So how do we make the best product? How do we have the best marriage of those visions? And so I'm always open to it. I'll always tell an artist that if you want to draw this a different way and send me that layout or whatever, fine. But typically I'll indicate it and they'll follow it the best they can. I think anytime the artist can change or improve the story and it makes it better, I like to see that honestly. If I have an artist that never has an idea, that never wants to, change a single thing that I've done, that would be fine. But it really doesn't happen. For the most part, the people I pick, they have ideas of how things should look and go too, and it ends up being a pretty good flow, free flowing exchange, I think.
Yeah, I think you have to trust your artist. Their expertise is the visual storytelling, where ours is the dialogue storytelling, right? So, and the pacing of the story, but it goes hand in hand. So I agree with you. I write a script that is structured and gives direction, but I'm open to, like, Ricardo's also the name of the artist I work with. Sometimes they say, yeah, there's a better way to panel flow. Take these 8 panels and make it 2 pages or something. We could do a half splasher, and yeah, it usually works out great. Sean was saying that he's going to be starting a YouTube channel about Indian alternative comics only. Awesome, Sean. That's fantastic. We need guys like you and channels like you. So please feel free anytime you get a link to share it to my post or drop it or to try to get out there. I don't get bent out of shape about shares. I really don't understand why people get upset. Tag me, share. I don't give a crap. Get yourself out there. It's called social media for a reason. And you'll be only reviewing indies and creating. Awesome, man. Great job. Kevin Stewart, awesome artist. He's late to the show as usual, but better late than never. And Jay had said, cool, right on. All right. So I left it up here because people, and this is a smart tactic people don't do sometimes, put the dialogue on the pages because people want to see not just a pretty book that you know how to write. That's a very smart thing that people don't always think about when you post your pages on your campaign. Now, was that something you were cognitively thinking of, consciously thinking of, or you just put up the pages?
Yeah, I think everybody kind of wants an idea of how does this flow, how does this read, and then lettering is something that we all know can ruin a comic if it's not done right.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Sharp is my letterer. He has been around for 3 decades and can tell you anything about lettering. He teaches classes. He's worked for all the major companies for years. So to me, that's a really important part. Like you say, we all do what we can in our budgets, but we want the best product as possible. So for me, I think that you know, lettering, there's only 22 pages in a comic for the most part, right? So if that's $3 more per page and it's going to look that sharp, it's a worthwhile investment for the reader because it just makes the product that much better.
So Kevin thinks it's the art's fantastic and it's like a tighter Frank Quitely. Very cool. Yeah, man, I really did enjoy the first book, and I look forward to the second one. I will be backing.
Yeah, for the most part, the Kickstarter, I'm trying to use a lot of the art from issue one to not spoil issue two for new readers. So,
Right,
sometimes I'll use like a maybe the first 3 or 4 pages of a story to where you can read full pages, and there could be examples of that there. But also, typically, what I'm doing is I'm putting a link to a place where you can go to a Dropbox and download samples of any intelligent comic. So that's if you scroll down there, you'll find a link that anybody can click there. They can read probably a handful of pages from issue one. Same thing with other comic of ours, 2100 AD. They can click and they can get that's a 44-page book. So I think there's like a 12-page sample of that one in there. So uh, I want somebody to really be able to get an idea of what the story's like, to like the story, and then want the full story either digitally, physically. So for me, I'm never like I'm not going to let you read it type of guy to a degree. I think that you like the work or you don't, you're going to back it because you want to know more about it or you like what you
right.
write. So yeah, there it is.
Yeah, people are gonna yell at me when you're struggling and you're trying to get out there like we are. Sometimes eating that 350 or 319, whatever your print run for that book was, to get it out in some hands is worth it strategically, of course.
Yeah.
So do you want me to click on? Do you want to look at 2100 AD real quick, or do you want to just stick on the campaign for the moment?
Yeah. If you want to click on that, we can look through that a little bit.
So, how is it for you as a writer challenging going from sci-fi to this gritty? I mean, there's a it seems like you're hinting obviously at a supernatural tone to the bar, but I mean it's a grounded in reality story, urban story more than here's the sci-fi future. How do you adjust your mindset for a totally different style of writing? I mean, a way of writing.
You know, I think for me, many times these stories kind of tell themselves to me. As corny or lame as that might sound, it's the
No,
truth.
I agree with you.
You either wake up from a dream or you're watching something completely unrelated and you have an idea of how come nobody's ever done this, right? So I think I can have that kind of an idea, at least for me, in any genre. Like I have it with horror, I have it with sci-fi, I have it with the bar, right? So and that's kind of like a drama horror book to a degree. You're right in the sense that there's a lot of supernatural elements to that. The bar itself, even there's a line that says perhaps it exists in one
Right.
of the big city's dark places. Perhaps it exists in the mall, right? So the bar itself can be any location. You can walk in, you could be in Chicago and see the bar. So it does have those elements. But I think for me, mostly, I think all the stories share one common thread. They're kind of grounded in realism. So with 2100 AD, we've all kind of seen like Terminator, we've all seen Matrix, but those are kind of like the same story. They're just told differently. So what's different there between those two stories is the execution. So this is another kind of artificial intelligence takes over the world, but it's done very differently too. I think in the other two stories that I alluded to, like you have artificial intelligence making bodies for itself to go and hunt humans, but given where we're going with everything being cloud connected, with whether it's stock trading and relying on algorithms, whether it's the Pentagon, whether it's drones, we have so much technology, we have so much cloud happening that in another 50 or 100 years, I don't think an AI would need to lift a finger really to kill everybody. I don't think it would need to build a body for itself. I think that it could probably make planes crash themselves, cars crash themselves, because if we're moving toward an autonomous world and AI controls the cloud, I think everything around you becomes a weapon, right? So this story is told from a very differentiated point of view. The reviewers that have read it and the feedback I've gotten is everybody's just kind of like, I guess, a bit disturbed of how it's probably a natural progression of how this can happen. And I think that's kind of the draw there. You're trying to figure out kind of like what happened to the AI, how did it go from being like the Pentagon's artificial intelligence unit to destroying humanity. And so we do a lot of backstory and exposition. I think like the first half of the 44-page book is like a issue zero to where we're spending a lot of time kind of like showing how this came to be, and then jumping to reality now and the survivors and kind of their plan. So, hey Charles.
Very cool. Now, do you do any character design of your own? Do you leave that up to the artist? Because like I design all my characters.
Yeah, like I said, I write full script, right? And for the most part, I'm writing it on a Word document because I'm transposing, I guess, what's in my head onto paper. So, if that's the case, you could say that there's a blonde man with a dimpled chin and a large nose, or you can find a picture of one, right? But either way, I'm probably providing reference.
Cool. And what do you find to be the biggest struggle as a writer? Like for me, it's just making sure. I wouldn't say it's a struggle actually, because I seem to be all right with it. But pacing, I think let me rephrase that question. What do you think is the biggest hindrance to a writer as a reader? Like, what do you think readers get turned off by most if a writer does this?
Hmm. So for me, just given that I try to tell everything from like a realism standpoint, for me personally, like it's story IQ. You know, if something starts to become unbelievable, I think it's all about suspending disbelief, right? So if you've taken me out of the story because I'm not buying a certain aspect of it, or it's not making sense to me, that character wouldn't do that, that character wouldn't say that. Why did they do that? That's where I'm kind of lost. So from a reader standpoint, I think sometimes readers can be insulted by that, but I would say that for the most part, um, I'm learning this lesson over and over again myself. for the most part, we really want somebody to latch onto. And what I mean by that is, comics is a visual medium, but everything needs to be character driven. I've not approached every story that I've ever written in a character driven way, because sometimes the characters were more incidental and it was more about that world or that, whatever, or that crisis. Like, so I think that can sometimes be a mistake in writing too, because the truth is we really want to bond with a character. So the bar is 100% character driven. You are in there, you're looking over somebody's shoulder with a camera, you're cutting back and forth between the person and the bartender, or you're going to a flashback and you're seeing them, where they live, or their human element, or whatever happened before they walked in the bar, or whatever happens after. Think about this, like in a movie, if there's just a lot of conversations happening and you're cutting back and forth between buildings and everything, you probably don't care much about that movie. You don't really know
Right.
what's going on. You don't care. But if if you turn on a movie and there's a black screen and then all of a sudden there's a woman walking down a beach and then we're following her and then she picks up a rock and then she's looking at the ocean, we want to know what's going to happen next, right? Because we're drawn to that character. We don't know their name. They haven't spoken yet, but we're following that character. So I think the more character driven you are, I think the ability you have to lure the reader in, to start to get them to care and to probably tell a bit more powerful stories.
You also touched on something really, if you think about it, less is more. As
Sure.
a writer, sometimes just you don't have to spell everything out. Let the reader trust that your reader has the intelligence to get what you're saying, especially with a comic being part, a visual medium as well. Trust that the artist can help convey things as well. It could be one word that's said, or and a facial expression or something, and you can get a strong point across.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what you said earlier too, right? You don't really need to bludgeon the reader over the head with your point or your premise or anything. I think letting them figure it out to a degree works, or leaving it a little open ended, or ambiguous. I think that's spot on.
Cool. So we're going to look at the rewards here, that are the options for everybody. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter, I think everybody here is. Just keep in mind, this isn't like a store where you purchase. You're pledging and you're backing, and what you get is described in there for your the money that you pledge. And a lot of times there are stretch goals and other things that are thrown in and options. So you can pledge without a reward. This could be any amount of money. It doesn't have to be $10. You could throw anything in there, 1,000, 500. um,
Ten
so
thousand.
yeah. So if you just want to support $1, anything, it all helps. For $5, you get the digital tier of the issue one. You'll get a digital copy mailed to you, emailed to you, and you can watch, read it anytime you want on your iPod, iPad, whatever. Um, for $7, you get the number two, issue two, which is the new one with the deluxe script. You go ahead and you tell us as we go through.
Yeah. So basically, I'm always of a mind that people will support at the level they can afford to or that they want to. So I'm not. Different creators are different ways. Some want to have like 4 tiers, right? I give the ability to catch up on issue one, to get issue one and two digitally, physically, and then as we progress through the tiers, I know a lot of people really like variants and sketch covers and that kind of art. So like on the bar, given how beautiful Ricardo does it, I'm always trying to offer that as well. So really, just kind of pick your poison, right? Do you want issue one and two? Would you prefer the issue one sketch cover as well, or the issue two sketch cover? As we move through the tiers, we start to do other options like getting all the comics Intelligent has released to date signed, right? So you start to be able to pick up 2100 AD, that other story that we were discussing and looking at, and um, the later tiers are like there's a ability to be drawn into the bar. That's typically not something I've offered in the past. I don't know if I'll offer it in the future. A couple of these stories are penciled, but the next one is not. The issue three story still has the ability to have somebody appear in that, and that would likely be later this year, right? So uh, I know certain backers have really appreciated in other campaigns and even my previous one to like the idea of being immortalized in a story. And that doesn't mean that the story is going to feature them in full length or anything like that. But what it does mean is they're going to be on that page with an uncanny likeness that is undeniably them, and they're going to be holding that and looking at that and keeping that, collecting that, like having that be something that they cherish ideally, right? So, and then there's also a couple pages that are offered as far as original art goes, which is typically like 11 by 17. This is the artist board that they drew it on, and that can now be on your wall, right? So,
Yeah, we saw some of the original art. It was gorgeous. Hey, John Ottinger, another great creator. How are you, buddy? He says, hello, all. It's like Norton. Hello, Bo. Never mind. I'm dating myself.
I thought it
So,
said hi.
yeah, I know. I was embellishing, man. I'm a writer. um, so these are, I mean, you get a lot for your money here, and you got an Ed Bennis cover. He's an amazing artist.
Yeah, Ed
Nice.
Benz. Ed Benz is, yeah. There's another series, We as Americans, which we've begun. Ed Benz, he really did. I don't know if you're familiar, just thinking off the top of your head, but you remember, I think Ivan Rez, when Bendis first took over Superman, there was that big kind of like larger than life Superman with his fist at his hips kind of cover that
Yeah,
Ivan did. We used that same model and sent it to Ed Benz, and he drew one of the lead characters from We as Americans on the cover. So really strong kind of homage to that.
very cool. So, um, limited one of one. So this $200 pledge, the bar, the sketch variants, you get a lot here, and there's only one of that. So someone better pick that up. Drawn in original art, all variants. Oh my, look at that. Think about it, guys. You spend $2.99 on this. Look at all you get. Where normally you just get one piece of art for $3.50. So, I mean, this is a steal if you really think about it. Everything you get for this, fantastic. It's no longer available. Good, someone grabbed it. All right. Hey, Raphael, what's going on? Raphael, if you ever need a Barry White kind of voiceover guy, there you go. He's got a voice that ring your ears, man. He's like Darth Vader. But anyway, so this is fantastic. So before we get going today, give us the overall pitch for Intelligent Comics, and then give us the specific pitch. Besides, I'm going to toilet paper the house if they don't. Why they want to pledge on this campaign?
So if I could go after you, I was actually going to ask you, Phil. You mentioned liking issue one. I wanted to know, kind of, after you read that story, kind of what were your thoughts and impressions?
Well, first of all, the pacing is solid. It doesn't drag. The exposition doesn't bog down, and you make us interested in what's going on. Um, you trust your reader to kind of read into things, and you don't force feed anything, which is right up my alley. I like the grounded in real life, but that hint at supernatural, like we said, the bar, it looks like it could be pop up anywhere, and like it's this extra dimensional place. Um, and the bartender, who is he? What is he? You know, does is he going to judge you at some point? And if so, what does he do? What if you know, does a good person walk in there and get his sympathy? Does a bad person walk in there and get his wrath? Um, you make the reader think, and you left me curious to see what the next tale is. It's a very clever thing to do an anthology without doing an anthology, right? Because, like you said, with the Tales of the Crypt, you have a grounded character and a grounded theme that brings everything together, yet it's a different, fresh take in every story, which is also great as a writer because anybody could pick up at any issue. You know, is it good to read all of them? Sure, but say you can only afford one of the issues at this point, you're not, you're getting a good tale to each issue itself. I thought the art was fantastic. The lettering was solid. Colors are fantastic. I thought that your writing, again, nothing was bogging down. Exposition was there. you write just enough to get me to think and see and understand what's going on, but you're not talking down to the reader, you're not force feeding anything, and you weren't bogging down with dialogue on the exposition parts of the story.
Well, thanks for that. I would say if there was a theme to issue one, I think it's like a snapshot of domestic violence. I would
Right.
say if there's a theme to issue two, it would probably be this is what abuse of power looks like. And so I
Yeah,
think,
with the cop.
yeah, yeah, and it's crazy because we watched that trailer, but the trailer is a handful of pages maybe in the middle of the story. There's so much more story before and after that trailer, and even the trailer is kind of juxtaposed to where it's not really you're not really seeing things in a linear order, so it's the story is not spoiled. So it's a dark story. There's a lot of food for thought, and there's a lot of story there. And I think that when you mentioned being an anthology without an anthology, I mean that's really the I guess you know when I was reading comics, I could get a comic and I could get a full story, and I like that. I have nothing against a story arc. People do well in story arcs. It's great for a trade. Love story arcs, but I also love the ability to have a standalone story. And I like the fact that I could just have an issue two or an issue three. You might think issue two is the best issue. You might think issue five is. They each kind of have that potential. You don't have to wait for the trade. You don't have to read issue two before you read issue three. You can start at any time with the bar, pick up something, and the greatest compliment I think that I've heard from people that have read it, aside from just general, oh, I love the story, or the art's great, or it's powerful, or great coloring, or whatever. I think when people have said to me basically that, you know I read this, and then it's all I could think about the next day. Or I read that and I didn't even have to read it a second time, and I read everything a second time. I think those kinds of
Right.
compliments are letting you know, like, you're hitting the marks you want to, right? Like, you're giving someone something that is now part of them. The same way that we might think of a movie that we saw 10 years ago and what happened in it. If any issue of the bar is doing that for any reader, mission accomplished. And I really hope that every issue can.
Yeah, I mean, and just your opening page, like I said, it hints at a lot of things, like with the bartender, and it's good storytelling where you open with this, and you don't really know what's going on, but it becomes very clear to you very soon. And that's the other thing. I think what kills stories that have potential is if you let something go on too long, let it be ambiguous too long, you lose people's attention. People don't have that patience. You didn't do that here. The ambiguity was perfectly paced. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So, and I think that's a good thing. Um, yeah, I mean, you invest in the characters emotionally. I mean, like I said, I'm not getting into details of my life, but violence was a big part of my life for many, many decades, and not on the same level as his character, but it rings home, man. And it's solid storytelling, and I mean this sincerely. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm not a good liar, and that I can't be a used car salesman. I give you my word, it's a solid story. It's well written, it's maturely written, and you're not going to walk away feeling like you wasted your time. If anything, it might stick with you a little bit, and you're going to want to see what's next.
Now that you mention it, could you show that strangled page again?
Yep.
So, funny story when it comes to that page. I'd originally written this issue as a 22-page issue, and um, the artist that was drawing it at first, I had an artist begin to draw it a while ago, and he kept having health concerns and different issues to where he wasn't able to complete it, and so he'd originally outlined the entire thing and begun to draw it. And he said to me at some point, like, we're doing a lot of this bar, we're doing a lot in the bar setting. He's like, is there a way for me to just draw somebody being strangled? He was a very animated guy. A lot of people know him. But anyway, so I thought about that, and it was such an odd request, right? Like, who asked you that? Have you ever had an
Yeah.
artist ask you. You know, your story is great, but I really feel like drawing somebody being strangled. Like, can I do that? You know? And so usually, like, you would just bat that down. Like, why would you ever do that? You know, you just. But in this case, you know, I kind of took that request seriously. And the beauty about it is you know, the first issue, you know, that's obviously the first page of the first issue. It's like you say, it's a well-paced story. It's a stiller story to a degree, in the sense that, you know, the action happens at the pacing. It's not wild and crazy, but like you said, when you said that, you know, that page gives you the idea that, you know, there's more to this, and, you know, you don't go too much into that, and that page is just kind of there. That's kind of like the conclusion I came to. I sat and thought about, you know, that question, and I was like, is it possible to include something like that in there? Because it really would give readers an idea of what to expect, maybe in a second issue or a fourth issue or something like that. You know, because every story is going to have its own unique protagonist that walked in, and you never know where a story might go. So I think that including that was kind of like that big, you know, okay, well, this is only going to add to the mystique of the bar. This is only going to add to that kind of a, you know, okay, I don't know what to expect next. Where's the next story going to go? There's clearly more happening here than we've learned, and I can't wait to read the next one. So it's funny because never, and this goes back to what we discussed when it comes to collaboration. Never chop down your artist. Never not listen to their idea.
Right.
If anything, try to figure out how you can make their idea work, because I think it improved the first issue. Honestly, it caused me to go and condense a couple pages so that, you know, I'm somebody who really likes to put all I can on a page. If I can have a page tell a complete story, I want to do that. So in this case, it caused me to go back into the script, find where I can combine a thing or two to free up a page to then put that page in there. So that's just a great example of how, you know, that bouncing back and forth during the creative process really improves the overall story.
You know, and if you take that and you go with the last page, which I don't want to ruin anything, uh, you basically this opening page and the last page tell you a lot about what's connecting everything that you're going to be doing, you know, and that there is more to this place and the keeper, the barkeeper, you know. Sean just said that he backed the campaign. He can't wait to read it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.
I'm actually going to post right now in the comments the link to the Kickstarter. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.
I want to remind everybody scrolling on the bottom, www.intelligencomics.com. You can go there for all things Sean P. Terry and his team that he has done prior. But if you want the bar, you have to go to this Kickstarter right now. And I put the link in the chat right here. So click it, nice and simple, and pick up issues 1 and 2. Like I said, I got to read 1, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's an intelligently written, well worth your time comic book. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I really don't, and I look forward to seeing what the next story is in 2, and you know, obviously where you go with abuse of power, and then beyond. Now, is this? You told me that you can write. You know, you've got 21 script. You know, loosely scripted stories, outline stories, and that you could write this forever. I mean, are your plans to be ongoing with this, or write until you just have nothing else to say? What is your plan?
To a degree, I think, you know, like I say, a lot of my favorite series that I read ended up being 50 issues, 66 issues,
Right.
75 issues. So, you know, could I make this 50 issues? I think that would be the goal for me. But, you know, I think that what's going to happen, as I said, is you mentioned, you know, the first and last page, you know, alluding to things to come. Definitely, we're going to have people in the bar from all walks of life telling these kind of broken down real world stories. We're going to learn more and more about the bartender as the series goes on. And I think toward the very end of the bar, we're finally going to get the full story regarding the bartender and everything. And so I see it going 50 issues, you know, just off the top of my head. But it's such a fun world to play in, and then kind of once you do learn more, even about the bartender himself. uh, I've always liked the ability of like Frank Miller, just different people, to go and do like a year one, to where like, what was this like at first, So I like all those concepts. I like all those ideas. I think to me, it's funny. You see Gaiman and Neil Gaiman, he does Sandman. Then he steps away for a couple of years. Then he goes back to Sandman, right? And then he steps away and he goes back to it. I think when you create a world that you really just, enjoy telling stories in, I think you tell all the stories you want in it. If ever there's a day that you want to tell more, you want to open it back up, you can do that as well. So for me, I think probably one of the flagship things in the sense of, as far as plans go right now, this will be the series with the most issues planned.
Very cool. Guys, seriously, let me refresh this. All right. So we got 14 to go. Why is it taking so long? There we go. Did that go up?
It has not, but Kickstarter can be funny like that. It takes a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, Sean's a smart man, so follow suit with Sean and back this campaign. Again, it doesn't take much. A $5 donation, or just pick up the PDFs. We're creators that pour our hearts out, and we really are passionate about what we do. We haven't become this corporate conglomerate that just wants to push out books, make a profit, sell toys. We do this because we love it, and it's the only reason why we do it, because we lose money on it, and we're working our day jobs, kicking our asses while we're doing it. Not giving you a sob story or anything like that, but just know that when you get a book, at the very least, know that the creator put their utmost heart and passion into it, and you're supporting that love for comics. Sean, thanks a lot for coming out. Hang on, let me get you on here. Thank you for coming out today. I appreciate it. I wish you great success with everything you do. And feel free to tag and share on my Facebook page right up to the end of the campaign. And as you heard, Sean fulfills very quickly. He's very professional, and he cares about his fans and the fans of the books. So he is a horse that you should bet on. Please go put your money on it. Go back this campaign.
Well, thanks for all that, Phil. Thanks also for making and taking the time with me tonight. I definitely appreciate anyone who does what you do, which is to have a show and to stream it to the community. That's how we grow. I think for me, it's about meeting people, but it's also about having meaningful relationships in the sense that I see somebody on a show and I'm probably going to back the book if they seem like a good person, and it seems like I'd have any enjoyment in reading it, and that's how you kind of discover other people. So anytime there's people like you that want to give a voice to other creators, I can't thank you enough.
I'm just sitting here blabbering off, but no problem. I'm glad to help. I'm actually picking my tears now. Yeah, I mean, seriously, from soup to nuts, guys, this is top notch quality professional work, and he's seasoned. He's got many Kickstarters under his belt, so you're not dealing with some new guy that is in over his head. Okay, back support the entire team. Oh, I have one last question for you. As far as
Sure.
editing the book, what are your thoughts on editing? Like, who edited your book? Did you self edit it, or do you have someone else look at it?
I'll have people read it. I'll say this when it comes to editing and an editor. I think everybody should have one. I've had people that I've been able to trust, no, paid or hired editor per se, but I, I think from my perspective, you know, um, everything we write we think is gold till we look at it 3 months later or 6 months later, or somebody reads it and they're confused about it, right? So I think as much scrutiny as we can subject ourselves to, the better, and the better off we are in our stories. Um, with the editor, for me personally, at the time that I was writing this, I didn't really know any editors. I didn't really have too good a. You have to understand this story's a couple of years old now, so at the time it was drawn and then released, like I'm releasing them regularly now. But at the time that you know people started to do pencils to the story, and I started to uh, release it. I hadn't had any experience with the editor yet. I hadn't really known of a good editor. That's something, Phil, I might actually take your recommendation on. I've met people recently. I know a lot of people use Chuck as an editor and different editors, but it was harder for me, I think, to hire that too, in the sense of, like, if I see you pencil, I know what to expect. I know how well you can pencil. You don't really see an editor work, right? They're behind the scenes. You don't know what they
Mhm.
chopped out. You don't know what they had you add to. So it's harder to hire for that position. So it's almost like you need. I think if anybody's worked with an editor, you really need to brag about your editor too, so that other people know that they're a good editor and what they did for your story. And then I think it's probably easier to hire the editor from there. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree, and yeah, we can talk about that because, like you, um, editing has been, you want to get a professional editor, but at an affordable rate, and you don't know what an editor can do until they do it. So, but yeah, we could talk about that for sure. Um, Sean, thanks again, man. It was a pleasure talking with you. Love your background there, and I look forward to seeing your success continue and seeing Intelligent Comics grow.
Well, thanks again for everything, and wish you the best as well.
Thanks, man. All right, Sean, talk to you on the flip side.
See ya.
All right, everybody, that was our guest, Sean P. Terry. Again, he's the writer and creator of many books. But if you find it in your heart to back his current campaign on Kickstarter, that is The Bar, issues 1 and 2. It's really issue 2 that's the new one with the catch up on issue 1. Um, it's really good. It's really good. It's stuff that really touches main emotions in you, and you can connect to. We all have our pains and our crosses that we bear in life, and Sean explores those in a realistic way with a cool hint at a supernatural element to it, but not over the top. So go check it out, okay? The link is in the chat there. And I expect you all do that because I'm too tired to have to go out and toilet paper all your houses, but I will. Having said that, I just want to remind you that Tragedy Chapter 3 is hitting Kickstarter May 3rd. I will do a live stream launch party as I always do, which I haven't assembled guests yet. We'll figure that out. And I want to thank everybody who's been supportive of the indie community, including Sean's book, who have supported me and others. And I ask you to please continue. And I'm excited to get Chapter 3 out there and get this party started. You'll have more updates. You see my posts all the time. All right. Sean P. Terry, The Bar, issues 1 and 2. Go check it out. Kickstarter link is right there. Please don't let us down. Back. All right. I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.